And we are live. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to this YouTube, Facebook, Instagram Live.
Hello.
This
How
is
much
my
fun
friend
can we
Thuraya.
have? Hi. Hi.
Welcome. My name is Max.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about a weird ass topic today. What do humanoid men want?
What do they want?
And what not to ask for.
Gosh.
So, first and foremost, I think for anybody that isn't aware what humanoid means, it is appearing to be human, but isn't. So it's a term that we use in access consciousness to create some sort of clarity and awareness. Basically, that there's two species on the planet, humanoids and humans. Now, this is not to create judgment. This is not to create separation or make one right or the other wrong or anything like that. This is to create awareness and to recognize that you may be different and recognize that you may be different and how you can use that to your advantage. Not advantage over others, but just advantage for you. Okay?
Yeah.
So humanoids are the people that always make themselves wrong. They never feel like they fit in. They're very capable, but they do things like procrastinate to make sure they can prove how powerful they are in the very last moment of getting something done, hitting a
I don't
deadline.
do that at all.
Me neither. And then there's a whole wide range of capacities that you might have access to, whether it's like healing capacities or really seeing capacities, awareness, perception capacities, all sorts of different things. So there's humanoid men and women. The funny thing is about this topic, it might be like, what do humanoid men want? And we're going to talk about that specifically. But when we're talking about humanoids, there's no gender involved, really. Just if you recognize that you're different, that's one way. And humans, how do humans function? Humans always believe they're right and everybody else is wrong. They pretty much have the point of view of, why can't you just sit on the couch, watch the football, drink a beer, and relax and be happy? Whereas a humanoid will be like, why the fuck would I want to do that? There's a trillion other things that I'm more interested in, would like to be doing, would like to, all at the same time. And sitting in front of the TV with a beer, watching sports and relaxing. It might be fun for some humanoids, but probably for not very long. And then you're interested in something else. Anything you want to add to that, Thuraya?
I mean, for me, this acknowledgement of, hey, I may not be a human after all, that in itself just opened up so much space in my universe, because it's like, hey, I'm not necessarily the kind of person that just wants to be a couch potato and just necessarily just, yeah, do that. And I'm actually more about, creating, creating, creating. And if I'm not creating, that's when I'm literally like, I can feel my brain cells possibly dying. So yeah, it was such a contribution, honestly, coming across that information and access. Yeah.
Totally. Cool. So I guess, what do humanoid men want? The women will be like chomping at the bit to be like, come on, talk about it.
Maybe we should have charged for this call. They've been waiting for centuries to know. What do they want? Tell us.
Totally. And it's this total like gender thing, right? Where like, what the fuck do women want? What the fuck do men want? It's like we're always wondering, what is the other, because it never seems to make sense. There is like some really fundamental differences between the sexes. And then, I mean, just to acknowledge as well, there might be some women that function a lot more like men, and there might be some men that function a lot more like women. So it's not just about the tools that you have on your body. There's a wide spectrum, and it doesn't really matter what sort of like gender on your body is, but like what you tend to be more drawn to in those different qualities, right? So the humanoid men And I find this so fascinating when I've never heard anybody talk about it like Gary Douglas does, who's the founder of Access Consciousness. And there is, he's written a lot of different books, actually. Let me show you one here. This one's written by Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane Heer. It's called Divorceless Relationships. I've been listening to this on audiobook again recently because I always hear something different. I don't have any of the other relationship books here with me at the moment. Mm-hmm. But he talks about with like humanoid women being the ones that want to conquer the world. You know, they want to be in charge of stuff. They want to conquer the world. They want to get shit done. They want to like boom, 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 go, go, go. Which generally in this reality, it's been said that men are the ones that are functioning like that. Whereas the humanoid men, they tend to want to be the ones that want to stay at home, like be the nurturing ones, keep the nest. And now this is not a hard line too, right? You might notice both of these qualities in you. So it's just sort of like but have you ever had to acknowledge, like it really actually gave me a lot of peace because I always thought I should be as the man, I should be like the direction and the this and the that and the, you know, the big earner and so forth. Like my wife, Shannon, earns a whole lot more money than I am, and she has a very strong direction. And so to recognize that I can actually have both and be both, and what are the choices that are available and what works in each moment.
Yeah, exactly. And if I may add here from like the
yeah.
humanoid woman perspective also, like for me, I totally like had, let's call it the phase of like, you know what, I want to be the nester in that phase. And I'm happy for you to just go and, you know, be the person that goes to work and all of that.
And you were probably happy for 5 minutes like that.
Yeah, like, and because I wasn't acknowledging that it was over, that's when like things were like, what's going on? And that's when I, you know, came across Access basically. And now it's kind of more of that phase of like, again, like it's like a dance between the partners. It's so funny how it's like, can we just let each other know that we're switching? Like who's leading?
Right.
We might, you know, step on each other's toes a little bit, but it's just, you know, being able to laugh about it also. That's
totally. And if we're talking about it in a relationship sense, and this might not be everybody's bag, you know, not everybody desires to be in a relationship, and that's like totally a different choice and possibility as well. But within a relationship, when you're dealing with another person, like that thing that Thuraya mentioned, which is great, that the ability to be able to switch and recognize who's taking the lead and who's following in each particular, whether it's an area or whether it's a particular moment in time or whatever. Because if we stick to like rigid gender roles about you do this and you do that and you be that and you be that, it's like, first of all, for a humanoid, man or woman, you'll want to kill yourself pretty soon or kill somebody else. Because you don't want to be stuck in a label. You don't want to be stuck in a box. And that's what like drives you mad the most. So to be able to have that free range and that continuous discovery of what actually works for you, first and foremost, and then what works in the relationship in that dynamic. And it can be really powerful to acknowledge these different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I ask you about like the title of your upcoming call, actually, The Healing Humanoid Man. So could you elaborate maybe or tell us more about this healing aspect?
Totally. So I think healing is a super wide, let's, you know, talk about that a little bit, is a super wide ranging thing. It can show up in so many different ways. It's not just doctors and nurses and, you know, naturopaths and massage therapists and, you know, all the stuff. It's like healing. You can have a lawyer that's a healer. You can have a politician that might have healing capacities, and it comes across and is utilized in a very different way. So, but healing is essentially the ability to facilitate change. Like you can never heal somebody else. That's sort of like a really big misconception. You can't heal somebody else. You can facilitate change. When somebody makes a different choice, that is what we tend to call the healing effect, or that's where change occurs. But the person who the thing concerns, whether it's body or psychic or otherwise, they have to make a different choice, but they might not have access to that choice at that particular moment of time. So facilitating that choice is like a healing quality. So that's why I mean it can be in so many different, it can show up in so many different ways. It can look so many different ways.
Yeah.
And the thing with the healing humanoid man, one of my senses, because we're going to discover a lot on the call as well.
Yeah.
Things that like I'm not cognitive about at the moment, but I know they're there, and we will get to those once we dig more in the call. There is this real nurturing quality.
Mm.
And what I found, there's a lot of humanoid women that have very driven and very have strong direction and very creative, that may not be willing to receive that healing, nurturing quality, which has its own form of strength in it. So there's on both sides how many men, humanoid men, have actually acknowledged they have that quality, that capacity to be that space of that nurturing and healing, and what that is. And then for the women to actually be able to receive that. And like I said beforehand, it doesn't really matter what gender body you have. It could be reversed in all sorts of different ways. So that's one element of this healing humanoid man. Because I know for me, when I was growing up, it was like I should be the strong, emotionless, man that can hold the woman and be the alpha and the rock in the stream. But the rock in the stream in this very particular way, which is, which for me, I found like I tried to be that, but it was lacking so far because there was so much more available. And we have all of these different qualities available to us. I can totally be that stability in my relationship, or for me, or for other people, but then there's also these other qualities that, like, if you don't have humor with all of that, and are willing to laugh at yourself and be interesting point of view about all of the points of views, yours, other people's, and so forth, like what's possible from that space then?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really like this big possibility when you put the healing humanoid man, those three things together.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really powerful in exploring that.
It is. I'm really looking forward to that, because it's just one of those topics that maybe we don't get into so much, with, I don't know, 1 in 100 people in a class are men. You've got one man for every 100 women in an Access class.
Yeah.
So I get that, definitely it's a beautiful and awesome invitation to actually get that conversation going. And I know, like, the title of this live is like, what do humanoid men want? It's like, we started off as a joke, but also there is like, it is also an actual question. Because like for me, I'd love to hear more from the men in class. I'd love to hear more from the male facilitators about like their point of view of like the dynamics within, their interactions with everything, their engagement with everything, and invite them to that space of, acknowledging the gift that they be. So thank you for getting that going. And I wanted to ask you actually about the subtitle. So like Max and I did a dance also. So I picked the title, he picked the subtitle. So the subtitle is What Not to Ask For. And can you say more about this, please?
So I think this is another element that a lot of women are keen to know too, like what not to ask of a humanoid man. So the number one thing is, and this might be tough for some, is you never ask a humanoid man to give themselves up for you or for anyone else, right? And for some of you that have done Access consciousness a lot more, you might be like, yeah, I get that. And you've heard about this. And I mean, this is from Gary Douglas, when he, in the foundation manual, one of the first classes that you would do in Access, this is incredible section about relationship and like how to have a good relationship. And the third point in there is allow the other person to do whatever they wish to do, and for them to allow you to choose whatever you want to choose, right? And a lot of people, when they first read that, might be like, well, but if I don't have any control, over the other person, and if they're going to sleep, and they're going to sleep with other people, and they're going to this, like, but I don't want that. And that doesn't mean you have to be a what do you call those floor mats where people wipe their feet on?
Doormat.
Yeah, a doormat. It doesn't mean you have to be a doormat and have them do anything. You've got to be willing to communicate and be clear about what works for you, first and foremost with you, and then in the relationship, and see if that actually works for the other person. And that's how you can start creating a relationship that works. But there is this element of you've got to be willing to let people choose whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And that goes both ways. So if you're with somebody, whether you're the humanoid man or the humanoid woman, recognize that if they're super controlling and they don't want you to choose certain things, does that actually work for you? Be in question about that. Is that something that allows you to be more of you, or does that contract what's possible? So the number one thing to not ask for is to ask the humanoid man to give themselves up for you, okay, and for the relationship. And that's something you might need to work on in your own universe, to be able to like not be controlling, because so much more is possible from that space.
Well, I love that you said that, and you started with that, because like for me, it's like really seeing that there is something called empowerment and choosing for you and all of that, and including you and your choices. For me, it's actually like sexy for a man to be like, hey, that doesn't work for me. Like, I actually think that is sexy, like for them to be like, hey, that doesn't work for me, rather than like, I'm not sure, but let me see if I can do it for you. Not that it's like right or wrong. It's just that, like, for me, it's that invitation is in itself, that man being in his being, I guess, like functioning truly from being and not from personality. That is an invitation to also, the person they work with or their partner or whatever, to also be like, hey, I've got some stuff to look at. And it's only when I really started to work with humanoid men and really like start receiving them that I actually had somebody tell me, hey, Thuraya, I've got some stuff to look at. Because my husband would just get his head cut off. I'll just be vulnerable here.
You'll be vulnerable for him.
Yeah, let's see if we can duplicate that. But yeah, it was so interesting, honestly, like getting into that space of this person is actually saying it from vulnerability, and it's not like from judgment or like, Thuraya, you're wrong, or Thuraya, you're bad. It's just like, hey, that doesn't work for me. So that's pretty cool.
It's this really the difference between choosing and reaction, I would say too. Like if someone's reacting, no, that doesn't work for me. Like that's not the energy that Thuraya is talking about. It's more so like I've said beforehand, you've got to acknowledge for yourself first and foremost what works and what doesn't. And then it's not about rejecting somebody or reacting in that sense, but recognizing for you first and foremost, no. What else is possible here? And then like being in question about what is actually possible here. It's not just like a straight no necessarily. Or it might be in some cases. It might be very clear.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. I've had a few of those, and that's cool, because that gets me to ask what else is possible that I haven't considered. Yeah. And it's not about like it's not a rejection or anything. That's actually an invitation for you to look at what else you can choose. That's what's so cool about like choosing for you.
Totally. And one of the other reasons why I thought that was good for a byline is because humanoid men will want to please you. They want to please the woman all of the time. And it tends to be easier for a humanoid man to give themselves up for a woman and a golden vagina and the cleavage and all the good stuff, coming straight from a humanoid man. Like
Yeah.
It's legit.
Okay.
And like, it's easy to want to give yourself up for it, but to have a relationship that empowers both people, like first and foremost, the humanoid man needs to recognize and to not give themselves up and to be in choice. But then sometimes you might have to be like, do you actually want that? Does it actually work for you? Because it's a developing thing, right? And every man is different. You've got to look at the man that's in front of you. There is no, like, none of these things that we're saying about humanoid men or women, we're saying is a blanket thing and applies to a whole bunch of people. There is such variance. Every person is so different and might be different at a different part in their life, and change and desire something different at a certain point. So the key really is to be in question and to ask questions of yourself, of the person that you're in front of, and to see what's possible.
And that's like maybe the humanoid woman, some humanoid women would be like pleasing for the golden check or the the
Yeah,
golden trophy
exactly.
for being a wife. So there's different
Yeah.
motives and different like dynamics and personalities in there. And I love that we're gonna, get into that exploration with deep personalities, stuff going on. Because, dude, like, like
Yeah.
this is like truly like something that is huge in access, and it's just allowed me to see how much I was also like not able to receive what's truly in front of me because of personalities, including, with humanoid men. So I
Yeah.
wonder what else is possible.
Yeah. Because all of these things also are really relevant, I would say, not just in relationship, but in dealing with other people. So recognizing when you're dealing with a humanoid man, when you're dealing with a humanoid woman, and then because it gives you awareness and how to deal with stuff, the different things that you could say or apply or the tools to use to create a greater outcome for everybody. And that's truly like when we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about everybody might not agree and be happy necessarily, but for it to be an empowerment of everybody and for greater choice and possibility. I think that's really the key. And that's a real artistry. It's not something that you just like, well, I'm right now because of this. It's like, it's an art of following the energy and what's possible and dealing with people and yourself. So
Yeah.
somebody's asking on Instagram too, like, what's the coming call? And that's the Healing Humanoid Man. And it starts on the 11th of August, so in 4 days. And it's a 3-part telecall. If you go to maxzoulek.com, you'll see that event there. And it's going to be different. It's going to be very different.
Very different. And I'm very excited myself to get into that exploration. And I'm wondering, like, when you got the ping, let's call it, to create that call, it's like, what do you mind sharing, like, what was in your universe
Well, it
and
was actually,
receiving?
interestingly, that occurred about 5 or 6 months ago. But Shannon, my wife, who's an Access Consciousness facilitator also, she was facilitating an online class. And then I was having a conversation with her and somebody else in the class. And it was about this sort of like from a man's perspective type of thing. And someone said, oh, you should do a class like about healing humanoid men. And I was like, oh, wow. And it like brought up quite a bit of stuff for me at the time, because I hadn't been really willing to acknowledge it, like the qualities. And it's taken to be honest, quite a bit of vulnerability for me to recognize the strengths, first of all, in those different qualities that might not be seen as a manly quality necessarily, or like, so I had to sort of be with that for a while. And after creating this class too, the things that were coming up around all of this and still continue to heighten before this class coming, are super interesting. And there's something that is possible for us to be with this that is really different. So when I chose to actually put the class on a couple of months ago, you know, to actually say, here it is, it was just time, basically. And I was ready, and it was ready, and now it's possible.
Yeah. And what would it take for this to be a specialty one day?
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
we do have like conscious vagina? Do we have like conscious conscious penis?
I don't know if there's a conscious vagina specialty. I know there are some classes floating around. That's a whole topic unto itself. Shannon's done a call on that, the vagina class.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested in that, that's like a whole thing. That was just for women, obviously.
Yeah. With the like the male version.
The male version.
The male version.
Yeah, and I think this actually interesting that you say that, because I think this is a start to that. It's like we're not going to go ahead and do a penis class necessarily, because there's a lot of points of views around all of that, and not very many men in access.
Oh my gosh.
But this is a particular vantage point, I think, that is really relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
So when we're talking about consciousness, I just want to point this out as well. Someone's writing conscious boners. Like
I love it.
There is so many consciousness. The definition of consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. Consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. This is like the most profound and simple definition of consciousness, and probably the only clear definition of consciousness I've ever heard. And Gary Douglas came up with that many, many years ago, or downloaded it, however he did. But it's so brilliant because it is inclusive of everything. And literally, if you take judgment out, like nature, for example, has no judgment. If we functioned like that and included everything, what would be possible is phenomenal. It is so beyond this reality, so beyond of what we can think of, because it includes so much more than just the five senses and the limited things. So, and then there's all these points of views around genitals and conscious sex and all that sort of stuff. Like, sex is conscious, genitals are conscious if you include everything, all energies, and judge nothing.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do about how you look and how you do it, and how many mantras you've said before you have sex and all this sort of stuff. That in the metaphysical universe, there's so much significance that's brought in about it. As soon as you put an ounce of significance into any of this, it's no longer consciousness, quote unquote, which includes everything and judges nothing, because significance is a form of judgment light. There is some sort of judgment. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any significance. Like, there is no significance in nature, ever, no matter what occurs. No matter if a volcano blows up and, there's an ice age that's happening or anything, there is never any significance. There's just change and creation.
Yeah.
So if we're willing to function from that, then let's talk about conscious sex, I would say.
I mean, maybe that's step number 2. I love that. And thank you for mentioning significance. Like, I'm going to share something really funny today. I don't know what brought that up. I guess I was asking my husband if anyone walked in on you masturbating.
Good question. You want to know these things about your husband?
I want to know. And he's like, no. Has it happened to you? And I said, no, but like other things, like I'm getting dressed or I'm in the bathroom. And he's like, at the bathroom? Like, I would have died. I'm like, it just wasn't significant for me. I was just in the bathroom. So it's kind of like that significance of like, oh my God, someone saw me in the bathroom. But for me, it's just in the bathroom, I've got a body. I got to go to the bathroom. Not that I'm going to broadcast it.
Live stream.
Maybe not that, at least not in these 10 seconds. So that was an interesting conversation, and that kind of got me looking at significance, with our bodies and all of that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So and it's the points of views and the points of views that we're aware of. Like, how many of those sorts of points of views aren't even ours, but we think it's ours because there's some sort of reaction that comes up. But you've just always been aware of how people are functioning and how this is like something that's like a hidden, secret, taboo thing that if it ever came up, then it's like a bad thing. but it's literally just energetically what you've been entrained to, but it isn't really your point of view. And so what is your point of view? What is your point of view about bodies? What's your point of view about sex? All these different things. Yeah, there's so many things to open up. And I just want to mention too, Chris Hughes does incredible classes when it comes to the topic of sex. So if anyone's really interested in that topic of sex, Chris Hughes is an Access Consciousness facilitator. You can find him on the accessconsciousness.com website. He's been doing incredible classes on that topic without any significance.
Yeah, it's super fun. And how much fun can we have with the humanoid healing man exploration?
Yeah.
And what day is it happening, by the way?
The 11th of August. So in 4 days, it will begin. Yeah, at 2 p.m. Central European time.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll actually be adding how many languages to that creation?
We will
so
see.
far?
We will see
Yeah.
in a couple of days.
Yeah.
I mean, all are possible depending on who's registering for those languages, you know, so we can get those translations ready.
Yes. So sign
Thuraya,
up.
thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. That was awesome. I know we've like exploded so much into people's world and in my world, definitely. So thank you so much, Max.
Yep. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully see some of you guys on the call. And how does it get infinitely better?
How does it?
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.